And I'd just like to talk about those three because there's others, but they're by far the most important, and in many ways that's it. The Fitzgeralds were given the land around Dublin and that whole area, so they're associated with Kildare. Kildare, while Dublin was a very important economic port, it was still a foreign city in Ireland when the Normans came, and always had been. The real Ireland was just a little further inland, in places like Naas, Kells, the Book of Kells, and Kildare particularly. Kildare was the sacred point. And like all good conquerors, you go and you put your emblems where the old regime, you put it on top of their burial grounds kind of thing, whatever was sacred to them. There was nothing in Leinster on the east coast as sacred as Kildare. That was the house of Bridget, and had just mystery going back to the year of Dot. Now Tara was important, but Kildare had since the Christian times had outshone Tara and the Boyne Valley because of Christianity. So that religion would have looked up the road and they would have seen those mounds and all the thing, and that was the pagan past, and you don't disturb that. That's bad. So you might wonder, but wasn't Tara yes, but that's not what the Christians did. They kind of just forgot that, left it there, and they set up their own. So Kildare, which was again because of its name, Dara, the oak. Dara is an oak grove, so right away it was a religious centre, going back to the year Dot. So whatever reason, anyway, the Fitzgeralds set up their headquarters, or their first big house in Kildare, which is now Maynooth, the town of Maynooth, and which incidentally is also the Irish Seminary. That's where they set up so Maynooth is still a very important emblem of Irish, particularly the church. But anyway, the House of Leinster, the Fitzgeralds, they went through various names. They were by far the most important. And because they pretty well controlled all that very rich land in there in the Midlands, they were right up there with the Dukes of York, the Dukes of Lancashire, anybody in England, especially in a couple of centuries later. Then there was the Butlers in Kilkenny. Kilkenny was also a very powerful city, and became at one time the actual capital of Ireland, the steps of Kilkenny and so on. It's a very important city. Did my time in college there actually, so I know Kilkenny quite well. But and the college that I went to predates Harvard or any college in Ireland, which I love to see. Anyway, Kilkenny was definitely. So the Butlers were the name associated with there, and then the other big family was the Burkes, who were on the west of the Shannon in Galway, and in an area which now is called Athenry, and that whole area there, which is a very extremely rich agricultural area. So they got that. So those three families pretty well dominated this period. Interestingly enough, if you know Ireland pretty well, if you know the west of Ireland, and if you look at the city of Galway, there's a bunch of lakes that go kind of up there out of Galway and virtually all the way up to Sligo. And if you draw a line from about Galway to Sligo and west of there, remained Norman free throughout that entire period, and remained so right down to the Elizabethan era, which explains Granuaile, which explains that she was still there on the west coast. So that line there was never conquered by the Normans. The plains, if you like, all the way from there out to Shannon, and all the way across were. The area down from Limerick all the way down, including Cork, Kerry rather, and a little bit of Cork remained Ireland, including what you call them, O'Sullivan Bear. You know, they would have been influenced by it, but they remained unconquerable because, again, it's a tough country. They tended to be associated with the ocean, and so did Mayo. Now Galway, the city of Galway, became a very strong, a very powerful Norman city. Prior to that, it was just a fishing village, really. It was not an important city. Not like Limerick or Dublin, because it was on the west coast, whereas the big cities, towns, had been built by the Vikings on the east coast. And as far as Limerick, and that's it. There really was no town as such all the way around, all the way up to the north, not even Sligo, until well into the 1500s. Even Sligo would have been just a little fortress in the 1500s. Now, of course, so the towns would have been all up and down the east coast, you know, Wexford, Waterford, Cork, but there would be nothing around until you come to Limerick. Now, so you could almost guess what was Gaelic, and it remained totally. They had just no penetration by the Normans in there at all. And then, amazingly, the area from Sligo across all existing Northern Ireland. And if you know the geography of Ireland, if you're traveling around there, you can see why. Because there's mountains, there's lakes. It's just hard to get up there, so it was easily defended. So they just left it alone. So all the counties of Donegal, Fermanagh, Tyrone, Armagh, Antrim, Down, Derry, all of those remained solidly Gaelic and Irish throughout all that period. And it really wasn't until the O'Neills and the Donalds made the terrible mistake of coming all the way down and leaving their down to Kinsale and losing the battle, and you know, we all know about that. Probably would have happened anyway. But anyway, so now you have this period when the really rich lands. Now remember, that was the best of Ireland, all of that area. So what happened to it? One of the first things that the Normans did economically was they went out and broke the old stone grinding wheels, which went back literally thousands of years. How are we doing there, Chet? A couple of minutes. Okay, 10. Okay, great. And I was showing Margaret this when I was over there, and it's so sad. You'll see those in ditches, and then, you know, they're being used just to prop up a gate, a half of one here, and occasionally you'll see a full one, because what they did was they buried them and they saved some. But those were they were extremely important to the economic life of Ireland, because the Irish were notorious in all of Europe for living on oats, porridge. They had the best porridge in the world. I mean, that was their great staple food. Long before the potato ever came. So if we're anything, we're porridge eaters for millennia. Now, the grinding of the corn was a local industry. It was done, every village had one. And what the Normans wanted to do is centralize it, because they mechanized it. So they built mill races, and they built large granaries, and they made, by breaking, it's like breaking your knees, you know, I break your feet, you're, you know, breaking your knees. You got to come now, so that they brought there. So you'll see, when you drive around Ireland, you'll see the old remains of the old mills, and you'll see them, and again, you kind of know exactly where they're going, because, you know, they're just natural spots. So they built these mill towns, and a lot of the towns are actually called mill towns. You know, there's a number of towns still called mill towns, but that's what they were. They were mill towns, because the mill came and then the towns came afterwards. And the